3, 2, 1, grow. It is on. What's up, guys? This is Guido Trinidad, and I'm super pumped to be here with my buddy, Alessi, and we're going to record the second episode of this podcast, which, if you guys listen to the first episode, we said that we were going to break down this guy right here who's speaking and just kind of understand who he is, who I am. I was speaking in third person, kind of weird. Who I am, and in all aspects of my life, all the different hats that I wear, the experiences that I've had and have led me to who I am today and who I will be tomorrow. Hopefully a different version of myself, essentially a better version of myself. So today we're going to focus on a combination of two, is who is Guido Trinidad athletically and professionally. Dive deep into some of the things that I've experienced as an athlete and as a business professional. So, what do I do first? Take that. What do we do? I'm going to take the stand. Is that right?
Yes, you're going to take the stand right now. And the first thing we want to do is let's do the reverse engineering. As you say, a quasi research of Guido athletically. So what's the story athletically? People in the gym here, they see you every day. And more importantly, people around the world who follow you are curious of that athletic journey.
Yeah, so I'm going to start off before I was in the womb. No, seriously, before I even get into that, I do want to keep it consistent. And on every show, whoever it is that we are interviewing here is have them take an oath. And the reason why is because in order for, optimizing the opportunity for growth here on this podcast, anybody who's listening, one of the most important aspects of growth is discomfort. And what does discomfort look like in the human experience? It looks like vulnerability. What does vulnerability look like physically? Get naked. So we're going to get naked. Okay, maybe not physically naked, but at least we're going to strip down, right? And we're going to get to a place where, I may share some things that I didn't even intend on sharing because maybe I'm shameful or I'm embarrassed, or I hope that it would relate with someone in some way and let you know that you're not alone in this struggle. So I promise, here's my oath, to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, to get really uncomfortable, to share things about myself that I may not like, but to also give credit to others and really recognize that the journey that I'm on and wherever it is that I am in life is not by my own doing, but because I've been blessed with a lot of people who have shown love and shine perspective on my life. And I just want to keep it raw and real for the benefit and blessing of others. Amen. Let's go.
Amen.
All right. So your question was, again?
Your athletic story. People want to know how that got off. What'd you get involved with? Were you very chiseled as a kid? Were you like your low body fat percentage, 7%? How did you get to be where you are today athletically?
Man, great question. Yes. I woke up just like this. I was born looking like feeling amazing all the time. No, I would say that, I probably have some pretty decent genes, some strong genetics. As I look back as a kid, I was always, leaner and had an athletic build. And I think knowing that motivated me. Like I always felt like an athlete as far as I can remember. I don't recall my first athletic, pursuit. I do recall I was like 4 years old and I fell off my bike and got stitches. And but I always felt like I wanted to win the race. So if I go back into like first grade, second grade PE, like presidential award, that was like a thing back then where they would award all the kids, like if you can score in the highest percentile of like run the mile, certain amount of like sit-ups in a minute, the sit and reach, which a guy with short legs was going to crush. So I really liked that one. But I was always winning that. So I think naturally I saw myself as an athlete as a very, very young kid. Field days, I always would win. And if I didn't win, I would cry. And then as a kid back in the day, it was very just normal to be playing all the time. And although I was the big brother, so I had a younger brother, we played sports and we were involved in all sports, but not necessarily like in leagues. So now like kids are like, can play 18 different sports. I played all the sports, but I never played them like organized. The only sport I actually played organized was football. But I still learned how to play all sports. I went to an amazing summer camp as a kid that was actually like free, thank God, because otherwise we wouldn't have been able to afford it. But, you know, I played literally like baseball, basketball, tennis, and I actually was coached well in all of these sports. So I always felt like I was competitive in any sport that I did. I was able to pick it up rather quickly. And I think more than anything, I would say that I'm a competitor, so I was competitive in handwriting when I was a kid. Jeez. I remember like wanting to have the best handwriting. There was like one girl that people said had better handwriting than me. I used to get really mad. I was like, Christina, like I literally remember her name. Second grade, Christina had better handwriting than me. I was super mad. I was like, I'm gonna have better handwriting than this chick. Beat her up. I mean, no. So I think part of my athletic story is that I realized at a young age that I was competitive and that I wanted to win. Where that was born from, we'll probably dive a little deeper into that in a little bit. But I think, partly just God wired me that way. And then partly my experiences that I have in just, my relationship with my parents and whatnot, like that might have driven me also to like maybe want attention or to get approval, so on and so forth. So where else should I go with this?
To stand out, it sounds like you want it because you were in this competitive environment that you created for yourself. So I guess my question is, you're playing loose sports in baseball, soccer, whatever it be. Why did you choose to go organized with football? And what about football attracted you to that sport?
Oh, man. That's a great question. I can't remember at what age, but I just was obsessed with football. I just loved it. I loved every aspect of it. As a kid, before I played organized, I thought I'd be a wide receiver. Like Jerry Rice was like my idol. Like, I love Jerry Rice. He was amazing. Joe Montana, those guys. Yeah. Although I was always a Dolphins fan, always root for the home team. But, you as a kid always get drawn to the champions. And when I was growing up, the 49ers were awesome. So I like those guys. So I remember just like I played a lot of sports by myself. Like I literally, we didn't have, we played video games, but I don't know. I just was always drawn. Like I would have a tennis ball and I just throw it against a wall. I remember telling my wife, like, you see like that little, like two pieces of wood that form like a square. Like I would look at that as a kid. I was like, that's a basketball hoop. And I would play for an hour basketball and thought I was Magic Johnson. And I would just like go like at it, like any sport. I would just play by myself so much. It's wild. So I remember like literally throwing a football to myself, like throwing it high as I can and be like, Jerry Rice scores a touchdown. And I'd like make myself dive. I was obsessed with football. I don't know what it was about it. And then I wanted to play. And I remember I was 8 years old. And my mom was like, all right, let's go. We're going to put you in football. Your buddy Eric, who you've known as a kid, he plays at Tamiami. So let's put you there. So we went to Tamiami. And at 8 years old, which actually happens to be my daughter's age right now, I could not be without my mom. What do I mean by that? I mean, my mom dropped me off. And when my mom dropped me off, I looked at my mom and go, where are you going? She goes, I'm going to go do groceries. Like, you're here. You're good. You have coaches. You're in a park. And I was like, no, I can't. And I literally had like a mental breakdown. And I cried and cried and cried. She was like, my parents were divorced at that time. They divorced when I was 4.5. So, the next day she came back and she's like, come on, you could do this. No. So eventually she's like, look, I can't sit here and babysit you all day. So you're not playing football. And she pulled me out and I was like, all right, fine. I'm not playing football. And I was 8 years old. And I remember my, we were going through some challenging times just as a family. And I had anger issues, to the point where my mom, had me seeing a therapist, psychologist, whatever you want to call it. What do they call him these days? Your mental coach. And he was like, yo, this kid has some serious anger issues. You may want to put him in an aggressive sport. That was the way that he was like, he needs an outlet. So she's like, all right, you're going into football. But again, I wasn't even mentally and emotionally ready to like be without my mom. So thankfully at the age of 9, we tried it again. She's like, all right, let's try this again. And I was like, all right, I think I can do it. There's a backstory there, but we won't go there just yet as to why I believe in my heart that I was able to like let go of this insecurity of being without my mom. And so at 9 years old, I played. And as I jumped on the team, I think it was 85 pounds, 9 years old. And I was probably one of the smallest guys. And I never ever forget, I was like a week late, meaning like the season had already started and I was like a week late. And I was literally the day before what they called the Jamboree. So Jamboree is really cool. It's a game where you only play one quarter, okay? And you play against 3 different teams. One quarter you play against one team, another quarter you play against another team. It was super cool. I was like, oh, this is awesome. I've never played organized sports. I like the idea of playing 3 teams in one day though. So they put me at, I was like, I'm a wide receiver. They're like, yeah, you don't know how to catch the ball yet because you've never played organized sports. So you're going to play defensive tackle. And I'm like, what? Well, the reason why they said I'm gonna play defensive tackle is because they had almost like a fundamentals for a new kid, and they're like, all right, we're gonna teach him how to run, we're gonna teach him how to throw, catch, run the ball, and we're gonna teach him how to tackle. That's like the most important thing. Like, let's teach the kid how to tackle. So they get this guy. His name is John, Coach John, and he was the dad of this other kid named Coach John. And I'll never forget him. I remember him putting the bag there, and he's like, all right, you're gonna tackle this bag like this and like that. And I remember him putting the bag there, and he was like, who is this kid? I was like demolishing the bag. Like water boy, like, like I wanted to explode on the bag. Like literally all the anger I had in the world was like, I was taking it out on the bag. Like, okay, kid, you're crazy. You have a spot on the team. Let's go. So after he literally did like a one-on-one session with me, I don't even think he threw the ball to me because he was like, you're going to kill the bag. You can probably kill a running back. Let's put you in a position to do that. God, I'm telling y'all, I remember this like it was yesterday, 9 years old. You know, we're practicing at 7:00 at night in October. So it's dark outside. And I remember like the next day was the game. I'd never played organized sports. I never put a helmet on. And they put me at nose tackle. And I'm the smallest guy on the team, or at least one of them. And I am just like blitzing. It's like, okay, the minute they snap the ball, you're going to go right through the line and you're going to try and tackle the guy with the ball. Guy, they would snap the ball and I was in the quarterback's face before he could even hand off the ball. Like, the coaches are like, can you put him somewhere else? He's destroying our offense.
No way.
And the guy's like, he's too small. We can't block him. He's too fast. We can't block him. Like, they didn't know how to block me. And I'm like, am I doing good, coach? And he's like, you're crushing it. And so I'm getting all this affirmation from men, which I wasn't getting at the time. And you know, everybody's like, dude, you're awesome, high-fiving me, hitting me. Or like the thing was like to smack you on the head.
Oh,
you know, like
geez.
Smack you on the head, meaning like you're doing good. Whack! Smack you over the head, like you're crushing it, buddy.
Concussion.
I was like, oh, yeah, right? So anyways, I started literally the next day, put him in the Jamboree, starting nose tackle. From there, like the rest is history. I just fell in love with football. Defense was my thing, even though I always, and this was probably from a prideful, selfish, I want to be the star, and the star scores touchdowns, put me at running back. So I always begged my coaches to play running back because from a stature and just heights standpoint, that was probably a fitting position for me. But the reality is that I didn't have the breakaway speed. I was always very quick, agile, and very aggressive. So I always kind of would prefer to run over someone instead of like juke them. And I could shed a lot of tackles, but that wasn't always like the best way, right? Like sometimes you have to like be able to see the field and make cuts. So throughout my career, I was always like the backup running back, but I was always the star linebacker. So I found my role as a linebacker. Defensive line, I was too short. To play cornerback, I was always like a more aggressive player. So even though I was more built to play like a safety and corner, I was always somebody that wanted to be around the ball. So covering somebody didn't fit my personality and my skill set as much. So I found myself playing football as a linebacker. And I played, I was always the captain of the defense, probably leading tackler every year, leading sacker. And my favorite thing that I loved to do was blitz. And I was extremely, I would say, creative with the way that I would blitz. I like to play like Jedi mind tricks with the quarterback and make him think I was going one direction and go the other. And I would consider myself almost like a specialist, like in blitzing. And I could blitz from anywhere. You could put me at inside linebacker, outside linebacker. And I loved blitzing, making plays behind the line of scrimmage was my thing. And yeah, I loved it. I played then. I'm guessing you want to know, a little more about the football stuff. Is that right?
Yeah, I want to know taking up that position of leadership, because you want to be the star. It sounds like you idolize these people, and you had that pride sense where it's like, I want to be somewhat a role of a leader. And you said you were the captain of the defense. How did you fall into that role? How did you become that?
Yeah, I think I've always just naturally, right? Like when you're a kid, you don't like say, I'm going to be a leader and these are my goals and like, this is what I'm going to do to show how I'm a leader. Like I think part of my leadership is definitely natural. And then now as a 41-year-old adult, I have to study to become a better leader. So I'm like, meaning, where am I lacking as a leader? What does the epitome and a well-rounded leader look like? And, being intentional, right? I would say I'm more intentional in my leadership now, where then it was more raw. And I was very vocal. So obviously, like, I led by example in the sense that, like, hey, I'm gonna go all out. I'm not gonna give half effort. I was very driven, motivated, and I always was one to like rally up. Like, I believed that in sport, in life in general, but in sport, I just can sense that emotion could help create momentum, and I always had this deep-rooted, innate ability to sense, like, emotionally, we need to be at a different state in order to win. And I always took it upon myself to be the emotional encourager, cheerleader, so to speak. So I would be the guy on the team that would go on the sideline and, like, literally one by one smack my teammates on the helmet. Let's go, we got this. And, like, I could feel the energy go down and I would boost us up, or I could feel it high and I'd try to keep it high. But I was what I would consider like I held the keys to the energy. I was probably the most enthusiastic player on the team. I led the chants. Like, we had this chant, like, yo, whatever they were, like, beat them pads, give it a pad. We had all these cool chants as a kid. And I just look back and I'm like, I didn't plan on doing that. That just kind of poured out of me. It was just who I was. So it was just, that's a God story, right? That I fell into a sport that naturally allowed me to express some of the God-given leadership skills that I had, which then further solidified, like, hey, this is, these are activities that are helping me shape my identity and showing me some of the gifts that I have. And man, I'll tell you, sports, besides helping me become the person that I am, helped me not to become the person that I could have been, because you could take all that and channel it in the wrong direction, and I did have a time in my life where I went in the wrong direction, and God used football to bring me back, like, meaning my love for football is what pulled me out of drugs, what pulled me out of, bad relationships, what pulled me out of skipping school, what pulled me out of stealing, what pulled me out of a downward spiral at the age of 15 years old. So after I played Pop Warner football, I played in high school, and again, did very well as a freshman, got bumped up to varsity, was supposed to start my sophomore year, and I became ineligible to play because I missed 50 something days of school, hanging around with seniors that had work study for half the day. And I thought, hey, I can go work too and just work on my coolness, because I want to be a cool freshman, right? That drinks beers at 2:00 in the afternoon at his house when no one's home. Like, what? Who the heck is this guy? I look back now, like how did I even end up there? By the grace of God, I became ineligible. I needed to be ineligible. I needed to sit there my sophomore year and watch my team play and make it to the playoffs for the first time in high school, in the school's history, make it to the playoffs without me. Oh. And that just wrecked me. And I was like, man, what do I got to do to like get back on that team? Obviously you need to go to school, buddy. Yeah. But I had an identity crisis where I didn't know how to not be the wild man, the party animal. I felt like my friends expected me to like be the drunkest, the funniest, dumbest guy, on the block, so to speak, right? So anyhow, I was able to get my act together to some degree, but not 100%. I always had like 1 foot in and 1 foot out. And then my mom, she had told my coach behind my back, she's like, hey, if you want Guido to like really like be on your team. I need him to go to this retreat for a week. And I know that you have practice. So he's going to give me the excuse that he has to go to practice. She's like, oh, no, I'll make him go. I'll tell him that he can't be on the team unless he goes. Coach Joe Montoya, God bless his heart, was a man of God, or is a man of God. And he stood by my mom, and my mom presented she's like, you got to go to this camp for a week. I was going into my junior year. And anyhow, so long story short, at that camp, I was there for a week, and I felt God tugging on my heart saying, hey, buddy, you need to make a 180-degree turn and leave the wicked ways of your life. You know, you're throwing your life away. At that age, at 15, I had already been arrested 3 times. It was a sad situation, to be honest, because it was all my own doing. You know, some of the friends, you know, that I had, which are still friends of mine today, they actually were the ones that introduced me to some of these activities, so to speak. And they stopped hanging out with me because I was outdoing them.
Oh,
meaning
wow.
If I give you the long list, the conversation is going to go in that direction. This is not what this is about, but I'll just tell you things that I am so shameful about and just not proud of, and would, you know, things that may have hurt other people, like stealing from other people, you know, using stolen credit cards and stolen checks to order like hundreds of dollars of pizza, like to do what? Like, it's just, it's a story of a lost, broken kid, you know, really desperate for approval from others. And if I wasn't getting it on the football field, the football field just wasn't enough. Like, I wanted more. I wanted more approval from others. And I didn't know that at the time, but I thankfully had a relationship with God from the age of 9. So I knew my identity was in Christ. I mean, I knew that I was a child of God. And while I was doing these things, I always felt like, oh, God's going to forgive me. You know, I God loved. But then I was in a place where I wasn't able to do the things that I loved. And I was like, God, help me. And he's like, well, you got to help yourself first, bro. And surrender these things finally. So at that camp, I surrendered my life to God. I was like, all right, I don't want to do these things anymore, but I don't even know how. I'm so deeply rooted in these relationships. And God put this young man by the name of Peter as my counselor in my room. And I remember somewhere on day 5 of 7, Peter's like, hey man, so how are you doing? How is this, you know, retreat impacting you? Is there any change internally that you're experiencing? I was like, Peter, man, thanks for asking. As a matter of fact, yeah, I feel God tugging on my heart, telling me I need to let go of, you know, doing drugs and doing these things with girls and whatever, you know, and but specifically the substances, letting go of that was really the biggest thing, because I knew that it just was really getting me in trouble. And I expressed I don't know how. I really I know it sounds easy, just let go. And I'm not saying I'm addicted. I just don't think that I can do it. I think that I am having a really difficult time. This is kind of who I am.
Your identity, yeah.
Yeah. And he's like, let me tell you a story. I was like, what? The guy basically goes on to tell me you are me 5 years ago. So he was 21 years old at the time. And he's like, I was in your exact same shoes, just even deeper. You know, I was selling this stuff, and I was, you know, known as the dealer in my school, and I was making money driving a BMW at 18 years old, all on drug money. And he gives me his testimony on how his mom was praying for him, and from one day to the next, you know, one thing led to another, where someone was almost going to kill him, and he realized I don't want to risk my life at this, and he literally changed his phone number, changed his friends, and turned his life around. And I mean, it's no coincidence that God put that man with that exact story in my room, knowing that the motivate, I've always been motivated by seeing other people do things, meaning oh, if he could do it, I could do it. For me, inspiration has driven me to do so many things. I've always looked at others and been if that person can do that, then I can. So I just needed to know that someone had been in my similar situation and could do it, and almost give me the how. Here's how you do it. You tell everybody to go fly a kite, you know, and you don't care about their opinion. I was like, okay, that sounds like a plan. I could do that. You did that? Yeah, it worked. Okay, I can do that too. And I did it. And so, surrendered my life to the Lord, things turned around drastically. Was then part of the team again, captain of the team for 2 years, was able to get a scholarship to play football in Benedictine College. Was there, played as a freshman, started for 3 years there, and God used that opportunity to like further grow me, athletically, but also spiritually. And there I had no hiccups. Thankfully I continued in my relationship with the Lord, and really, I believe that I was a D1 athlete, still to this day. But I felt in my heart that I knew that I was going to be battling an uphill battle because I was 5'7" and 185 pounds. And even though I had never played at a level that I didn't dominate, like I played at a 5A school against Frank Gore, Andre Johnson, Jonathan Vilma. I mean, you name all these superstar athletes, and we beat them. We crushed them.
Oh,
you know what I mean? Like we dominated them, and I was one of the leaders on the team. So I knew that I was good enough to play at that level. So why didn't you walk on? And I just kind of had a decision. I was like, I can walk on, and they're going to probably prefer, like I have to do significantly better than the guy that they invested money in. Right? Like the guy they invested money in, they want him to shine because that's their investment. So why don't I just go somewhere where I know I'm going to shine, like right from the bat. So kind of be a big fish in a smaller pond. No guarantees there either. And I did that. And it's actually unlike me to do that because I'm more of an underdog and I thrive in that role. But I really felt at peace when I visited Benedictine College. They really wanted me there. I didn't have any other school that like really wanted me. So they wanted me there. They had a winning program. They had a coaching staff that had already been there for 25 years. And I was like, man, like, what else do I want? Like, winning program, coaching staff that's solid, a good school, and they want me. Yeah, it's not D1. I'm not going to be on TV, but I just felt peace in my heart about it. So I went there, and it was one of the best decisions. If I, there's certain decisions in your life that you make that change the trajectory of your life. That was one of them. Change the trajectory of my life. They wanted to win football games and championships for sure, but they were more concerned with building a champion in character. And we would have meetings in football, like, hey, let's go over defense. And he would like be like, Coach Gartmeyer, he was kind of like a showman. He'd open the door and he'd look and be like, is Coach Wilcox watching? His head coach. He's like, all right, we're not going to talk X's and O's. That's BS. We're going to talk about how to be men. You want to be a man? You want to be a successful man? Let's talk about how to be a man. Let's talk about integrity. And he'd like break it down, like literally like just pour into us like life lessons. And he was super intentional. It wasn't like by mistake. Like he knew that we were more than just football players. And man, ask me more about this. I'd love to talk at least for 5 more minutes about my experience in football at Benedictine College because it was life altering.
Was that the coach? Because the thing I loved about is like your turning point where you went to that retreat and you talked to Peter and then Peter turned you around. Did you have another turning point? Because as of now, you're not playing football and you didn't continue football into the professional league. Where was that next turning point? What happened?
Athletically speaking, you mean?
Athletically speaking, yes.
Yeah, so I'm going to give you like a minor turning point in terms of like, so I'm playing football and all my life I'm like, I want to be a professional football player. Like I believed wholeheartedly and still to this day, I believe that God had given me the talent and the ability mentally, physically, what have you, to actually be a professional football player in the NFL. I firmly believe that. I have no doubt in my mind. I just don't believe that was God's plan for me. I did not. So here I am, a freshman. I'm playing. I'm a sophomore. I end up being third team all conference, but I get injured. And I have this moment. I'm like, why am I injured, God? Why do you allow me to get injured? I had this pity party. And I was like, well, if I want to answer to any questions, let's just start looking in the Bible. And I was looking in the Bible and I just feel like God telling me like, man, you're not stewarding the gifts that I gave you well. Like you're really not making the most out of this opportunity. So what do I got to do then? All right. I got to train harder and I got to train differently. I got to take this more seriously. And I started saying like, I only got 2 years left. And if these may be the last 2 years that I ever play football again in my life, and I've been playing since I was 9 and I'm about to turn 20 something. And I was like, I need to really do the most with this. What are my goals? And I just started getting really serious about it. Like I wrote down my goals. I want to lead my team in tackles. I want to help my team win a championship. I want to become a first team All-American. I want to be team captain. I wanted this, that. And man, your success is not defined by whether you reach your goals or not. I think it's more defined by who you become in the process. And I became the type of person who reaches the goals. I became the type of person because I put in the work, because I didn't make excuses. I looked at myself in the mirror and I didn't need a workout partner. I didn't need a workout plan. I just went all in, bro. And when I came back from the summer, this happened over the summer between my sophomore and junior year, I transformed. I always just saw training as a means to get better in football. Training became an obsession for me. I trained 3 hours a day when there was no YouTube. There were no workouts on the internet. There was nothing. I bought a book at a bookstore in the airport that said strength and conditioning taught by the strength and conditioning coaches of Nebraska Cornhuskers, which back then were like the leaders. But I didn't know how to train, and I knew that there was more than what my coaches were giving me. So I became obsessed with sprinting, with agility, with eating. It taught me how to eat right. It taught me how to rest. And my whole summer was based on like, I'm going to be an All-American football player and I'm going to lead my team to a national championship. And that year, we actually made a huge stride. I became an All-American. I led my team to a championship. We actually, won the Heart of America Conference Championship, and we went to the Final Four. So we were ranked second in the nation at one point in time.
Oh my God.
So we had an amazing season. And then the next year, I only say these accolades not to like, hey, look at what I did, but because I felt like I knew that I was capable of more and I was actually underachieving. Okay. In high school, I underachieved.
Yeah.
I wasn't all in all aspects of my life, Yeah. And when I did, all the things that I knew that I was capable of came true, whether that be team captain, team MVP, All-Star game, MVP of the All-Star game, defensive player of the year for the conference. Like I literally look back and I'm like, did that really all happen? Because I knew as a kid I was capable of it, but I never really achieved it. And my senior year, it all came to fruition. It was like, what is happening? And it's just the fruit, that when God puts a seed in your heart and you actually do the work to water it, God makes it grow.
Yeah. It sounds like you fell in love with the process. And that's, for a lot of people, very hard to do. They see the end. They see the accolades, like you mentioned. They're like, I want to be that. But you were going 3-hour training days. You were doing this all by yourself. That motivation, like, that is incredibly hard to create, self-create. And I think it takes a certain individual to actually be able to do that. Because most people can see all that and they'll be like, one day be like motivated, let's do it. And then after a week, they're done.
Yeah.
But you did that for a summer, the sophomore, then junior, and then senior year, it all comes into fruition. It's like, wow. Like that actually pays off. So did that mindset lead you into becoming, I don't want to say the gym owner, but just the individual today where it's like, you're cool with the idea of like delayed gratification, being like, I'm okay with putting all this work in right now, not seeing the success right now, but over time, this is going to pay off. This will lead to something. Absolutely.
You have to. I think we want the success right now. Right, we don't want to wait in everything, in marriage and in your investments, right? Just the effect of compound interest, right? If you look at like the math behind that and the science behind that, it's proven compound interest will make you into a millionaire. But no one wants to invest right now. They want the instant gratification. So yeah, those principles are deeply rooted, but that doesn't mean that I'm not human and I still strive for like the instant gratification, but I am more understanding, of that there's a process and hey, let's play the long game. So yeah, I think CrossFit is one of those things where even if you're really good at other sports, you may not be an immediate sensation with CrossFit because there's so much to learn. So it's a perfect illustration of how it does still take time, right? You may come in as the strongest guy, or you may come in as the guy with the best cardio, but you're going to be weak somewhere, and it's going to keep you from being on the podium. It's going to keep you from actually reaching your fullest potential. So that's a good transition into CrossFit. That's how I fell in love with CrossFit as well. It became a second almost birth for me as an athlete. I was like, I can compete again, you didn't ask me, but I'll just share. Like after I played my senior year, I had aspirations to play in the NFL. I went to a few combines, and I was just never like the tester. I was always a gamer. You know, for my size, I was strong, I was fast. But when you stack up my numbers, you know, to that of a 6'2", 240-pound linebacker, I was not going to bench as much as him. And I wasn't gifted with the 40-yard dash. But you put me next to that guy on the field, I'm going to make tackles just like him, if not better. But that's not an opportunity that you really have all the time. When you come from a small school, you really need to stand out above and beyond. So I was never given the opportunity to try out for a team. Which is just the way that works. And one of the things I love about CrossFit is like, you don't care about your height, your size. You do the work, you put up the numbers, you're on the podium.
Yeah.
You want a trial? Go ahead and do Fran, go do Murph, go give me a 1 rep max, whatever. And if your numbers add up, you're winning, right? And you know, there's a little politics in the sport of football, which, you know, unfortunately was didn't provide me the opportunity to continue to go. But thankfully, I was able to play in Europe for 2 years, which was kind of like, you know, an outlet for me to be like, okay, I did more than just college. I played for 2 years, one in Sweden, one in Spain. We won a championship in Spain. So that was my final year. I went off on a high note. My last game I ever played, championship game for Spain. And that was really fun. It was, I would consider it a paid vacation. We got paid to be there, but it wasn't a lot of money. It was enough money to have a good time in Spain or Sweden and, you know, make ends meet and pay some, maybe student loans or keep them deferred for long enough.
Yeah.
So came back, actually took a year off of training. So graduated from college, stayed at college to coach for a year. I thought I was going to pursue professional coaching. I was going to be a professional football coach. And then I went into playing football overseas, and then I met a girl, and that kind of was like a weird and dark moment of my life for about a year and a half where I didn't train and I was just pursuing this relationship, which was toxic. And I lived in Spain for about a year after I played football just to kind of pursue this relationship, and then came back home. And I'm just going to give a quick story on this. In Spain, I felt spoke to me, and I studied entrepreneurship and finance. So I knew I wanted to start a business, but I didn't know in what. After I kind of gave up on the dream to coach because I didn't really believe that was the lifestyle that I wanted to live, is to be moving all the time. So I felt God show me, like, I want you to own a gym. You're going to teach people how to do what you did for yourself. You know, you made a 5'7", 180-pound kid a first-team All-American because you have an understanding of how to train your body, of what it takes mentally and physically. And you're gonna the aspirations that you have for business, you're gonna use that. Like I literally saw it. I remember where I was standing in my room, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna do that. But back then, I didn't know there weren't CrossFit gyms. So I didn't even know what that looked like. And mind you, I didn't have an exercise physiology degree. My degree was in football. No. My degree was in finance and in entrepreneurship. So I knew that, but I didn't know the knowledge that I had from exercise phys was just me studying books and a little bit on the internet, you know? And at the time, this is 2005. The internet didn't have the information that it has now. So anyhow, I was like, okay, that's what I'm going to do. I moved back home. I started working for an elevator company and worked corporate America, did well, and just needed a job, you know? I knew that wasn't going to be my future forever. And I'm trying to connect the dots to the athletic piece here, but I do need to share. So I did that for about 18 months until, you know, I've always had this, and God's really, you know, ridding me of this version of myself or this identity that I've had as a kind of a rebel, right? And, you know, even as an adult, whether I'd be like, oh, there's a red light, no one's watching, and I need to get there, like, just take the red light, right? Like, hey, my wife isn't here, and there isn't a camera up there, and it's 5:30 in the morning, like, you know, just take the red light, who cares, right? Like, that's a rebellious spirit. Like, that does not come from God. Like, okay, so I have that, you know, but again, I'm really trying to, you know, break free of that. But why I say that is because I didn't fit that corporate mold. And I think in part because I had that, like, hey, these rules are good, but I don't believe in all the rules. Like, I'm producing, I'm your top salesman. Like, just give me a break. They're like, no, you got to play by the rules. And I was like, all right, then I'm out. And they're like, no, we're going to fire you. And I was like, what? So a year and a half in, I'm like about to get let go. And I just like, God, what am I going to do? Like, all right, I don't have a lot of bills or responsibilities, but I am 28 years old. I need to kind of figure this thing out. And you did kind of put in my heart 3 years ago that I was going to start this business. Like, is now the time? And I was just like, yeah, now is the time.
Ooh.
And as I had about a month left of my, working, like I had a boss that was pretty flexible. He's like, hey, like the big boss is the one that doesn't want you here. I'm cool with you here. I love you. You're great. But this guy doesn't want you here. So why don't we just take this next month so you can start planning your exit? And I was like, all right, cool. So in a month, I literally started a plan to I'm building Peak 360. I came up with the name. I worked with the graphic designer. This is in 2007.
Wow.
And I didn't know about CrossFit. I didn't have, I think I had a personal training certification because I dabbled in personal training in college and whatnot. And so anyhow, I created and I basically said, I'm going to make my living. I'm going to eventually open up this gym, but I only have $3,000 in my bank account. So I definitely can't open up a gym with that. And I don't have a business plan. So I'm going to create a brand where I'm going to personal train people and I'm going to help them change their lives. And so I built this brand and I went around and I tried everything. I literally went to concierge at high-end hotels in Miami Beach to started coaching Little League football and convincing parents that I should coach their kids and I could personal train them. And they're like, oh, where's your gym? I'm like, I don't have a gym. My trunk of my car is my gym.
Oh, wow.
I come to you. I'm a mobile gym. And,
selling it.
Yeah, man, I was, demanding back in 2007, like $100 an hour. Let's go. Like, trust me, I'm worth it. And, I really believed in my heart that I was, and I knew that I was at the time, even though I may not have had all the degrees and certifications. But anyhow, so I quit, started that. And shortly thereafter, it really wasn't long. I would say I started my company in February of 2008. Okay, I'll never forget. And I want to say within like 6 months, I discovered CrossFit.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And it really just completed my philosophy I was big on just philosophy. Like, I need to have an approach, right? Like, if I'm going to say that I am going to train people better than others, like, what is it that I do differently? And I've always done research and always believed, and I knew that I trained myself to be, a very good athlete. So how was I going to use that to help others? So, but when I ran into CrossFit and just like fitness in 100 words, I was like, bro, this guy's a genius. Like, this makes all the sense in the world. And I actually stopped lifting heavy for about 1.5 years because I was kind of tired of it. So when I found CrossFit, it just really lit up the competitive nature as well as helped stimulate a more well-rounded version of well-rounded approach to fitness than what I already had. But the business model itself, I hadn't seen it other than one person by the name of Michael Suna, who we went to the same high school, and he's the one that brought me out and introduced me to an actual like box CrossFit, not just the website and doing workouts there. So where do we go? Ask me a question so that we can connect some of these dots here.
Well, then you're introduced to CrossFit and you have it's $3,000, right? That's how much you have. And now, like, you're working from the back of your trunk. You haven't mentioned it yet, but you've told me before. You're going to parks with people. You're working with parents as kids for football. When does that all amalgamate to you actually getting a gym, a warehouse, a place where you're training people and you're using this CrossFit ideology to help people become the best version of themselves?
So basically I was always just kind of for about 1.5 years raising money. Let's rephrase that. Trying to save money. But wasn't necessarily very successful at that. So I had this master plan. I'm like, I'm going to save up this much money this summer with this program that I'm going to run for kids, a speed and agility camp. And when I do that, then I'll have the money to be able to open up my own facility. And it's going to be like a CrossFit, but athletic performance center. It's not going to be your traditional CrossFit gym, which again, I had only seen one anyway. So I didn't even really know what they looked like, but I knew what they practiced there. But I wanted it to be like, not just CrossFit. I want it to be like, I want to train athletes and I want to work with professional athletes. So as I was planning on running this camp, I was doing a boot camp out of Michael Suna's gym, and we were basically splitting the profit. And at that time, they and I, we didn't have like the vision that, hey, this could actually negatively impact the CrossFit business if I'm running a boot camp that is like almost similar. It's a HIIT program, right? because that's what I was doing at Parks. Where he was like, hey, like come in and run this boot camp and we'll split the profit. And I was like, okay, it's kind of similar to CrossFit. He's like, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Well, we did it for 2 months and it grew, from like 30 to 50, 60 people.
Wow.
In less than 2 months. And, they said, hey, this isn't really working out. It's kind of negatively impacting our business when we were trying to grow ours. So we're going to, ask you to, make the switch and just go back to the park. And I was like, back to the park? Like, this is amazing. No, I can't go back to the park. They're like, yeah, no, you got to go back to the park, bro. We love you. You could work for us here as like the athletic guy. And I was like, no, I really want to do my own thing, man. You know that, been talking about that. They're like, all right, cool. But like, they were stern at the time. I just full transparency. Mike and I have a great relationship. I was mad. I was upset. I felt like they were being harsh, but it was such a blessing. And if I look back now, it's like they made a smart business decision. Like why would you keep some guy who's like unintentionally, because that was the business deal, but like cannibalizing your business, So they had to kind of cut me, and they did the right thing business-wise, but relationally, I didn't feel like it was the right thing. But in hindsight, it was all God's plan because, I was already looking for a warehouse. Mind you, I didn't have money. It's literally like shopping for a Rolex and you have no money in your account. Like you're just window shopping. But I'm talking to the guy, literally like the owners of these warehouses, and I'm like, yeah, I'm going to raise like $50,000 this summer running this camp. Well, I couldn't run the camp because I didn't have a place to run it. Oh. So as I go back to the guy that I had met with a month prior, I'm like, hey, Richard, I have this, situation, buddy. I have a camp that is not going to happen. So I don't have the money, but I actually don't have a place to run my business because XYZ happened. Do you have a small warehouse that I can look at that maybe I can afford? So he starts showing me small warehouses, literally 1,000 square feet. 1,000 square feet's not a lot. I don't know the last time you've been to 1,000 square foot gym, but it's not a lot. And I've always been pretty aspirational. I should have just accepted it and been like, oh, I'll take that. That's beautiful. I can afford that. That's, whatever, $1,500 a month, $2,000, I can do that. I was like, no, I can't do that. I'm coming from a 4,000 square foot gym and my members will literally just run out of here. And he's like, all right, let me take you to this place. And he opens up this place and it looked like a palace. 10,000 square feet, 20-foot ceilings, AC, pristine. I'm like, Richard, what are you doing? Like, you want to rent me like the corner of this place? And he's like, no, I'm going to give it all to you. And I'm like, but I can't afford that. I told you he's like, what is your budget? And I'm like, do some quick math. Like, I should have probably been prepared and like had a number in my head. And I was like, $3,000 seemed to be the right number. I did some quick math. And he's like, let me tell you something. He goes, I really like your ambition. I like how passionate you are. And I just believe in you. I believe that you're going to go somewhere. And I think everybody in their career needs someone to help them and believe in them and lend them a hand. And I'm going to be that guy for you.
Wow. That's amazing.
I would not be sitting here right now with you if it wasn't for Richard. So thank God for that angel of a man. And he gave me that opportunity. He said, so here's the deal. I'm going to give you it for $3,000 because that's what you can afford. But he goes, market value is about $10,000 and it's on the market. So if someone comes and offers me $10,000, I'm going to actually give you the first right of refusal, which means I'm going to give you the opportunity to say, yeah, I'll keep it for $10,000 or you got to go. And I'm like, that sounds like a deal. And he's like, you have time to build your business, build it fast. Wow. And sure enough, I would think I was probably at like 150 members in 6 months. So I think we're like the 4th CrossFit gym in Miami, and that helped, I'm sure. I didn't know what I was doing. My first night there, I literally was turning on the lights from my car and music from my car because we didn't have power turned on. I'm like, what do you mean? This place doesn't come with power?
No way.
They're like, no, bro, you got to call FPL. Like, you have to have a contract. I was like, oh, okay. Yeah, I didn't do that. Sorry. So I had like 2 nights with like working people out with music and light from my car. It's wild.
Was it incredibly stressful knowing that you had a deadline? Or you didn't? There was no deadline because it was ambiguous, but like you knew that someone could come up at any point and be like, I want to buy this for 10 or I want to get this for 10,000. No, oblivious sometimes is a good thing. Just being oblivious. Like
I never felt that pressure. I actually never felt pressure at all. Like in terms of like, I got nothing to lose. I didn't have a family at the time. I didn't have a mortgage. I didn't have a car payment. All I had was rent. I needed to pay rent every month and put food on my table. And I think if anything, I just had a reputation, that I felt like I needed to uphold, that I wanted to be successful. So, I didn't have money at the time. Like I said, I only had $3,000 in my bank account. I do this. I'm just hoping people show up, and I'm putting the word out there. So I'm hustling. I'm also doing personal training on the side and whatnot, so I can pay my bills. And man, like it's something happens when you take that like leap of faith and you just believe blindly that God is going to provide, and you trust. And literally immediately within a week, I had a call from a kid who I was training. His dad said, "Hey, I heard what happened, and I believe in you, and I want to support you. How much money do you need me to loan you?"
Wow.
So what an angel. This man, I don't say his name because he's asked me for many years to not ever reveal his name, but that man was a blessing to me, and it still is. And I basically was able to purchase all the equipment with the money he gave me. And then my mom, who inherited some money, we grew up, very middle class, working class, making ends meet every single week, $2 for lunch, sometimes free lunch, and but we come from, a family that had money in Cuba and whatever. Long story short, she inherited some money, and she's like, "Hey, I got $50,000. Want me to loan them to you?" And I'm like, "Mom, wow, like got 50K, like you've never had that much money in your life. Like, I'm not going to take your money." She goes, "No, this is what it's for." And she blessed me with $50,000.
Wow.
So, and thankfully I was able to pay her back within, probably a year or two. Interest free. Thanks, Mom. But yeah, but I didn't have those things lined up. So the story is like, hey, like take that leap of faith. Even if you don't know how you're going to make it happen, like sometimes you need to be able to risk it and do that in order to, fulfill the promises that God has for you. So, yeah, man, I know we're a little over on time, but in terms of ask me a few more questions here so we can wrap this up and not make it super long and drawn out, because we have more episodes that we can cover more things on too.
I was gonna say, I think the one thing, just to reiterate, was just the innate confidence you had going into just when you're creating this gym, where like most people I feel like would have folded or been afraid, knowing that like they couldn't make up that margin of profit to pay back. And you accomplished that, and you did it. And we're standing here today, and I came from California to be with you, be at this gym, train here, learn from you. So like it pays dividends, like the power of compounding. I think that was a good theme. The idea of just laying one brick at a time, and over time you make a wall. So,
Amen. Oh man, it's if I were to look back and be like, well, how did I end up where I'm at today? And to be honest, there was so much that I didn't know, and I thought I knew so much. And I think if there's something to learn, is like there's always. I know we always know there's always room for growth, but I really try to approach life a little bit more now with a balance of who I was then, this insane risk taker that, didn't care what the obstacles were in front of him. Like I was on a mission, passion pouring out of my veins. Like I want to do that. But at the same time, having a little more humility and knowing like, I don't really know. Like I don't know, and I need to know, and I need to surround myself with other people who have been there, done that, and just lean on them for guidance. I've never been one, I wouldn't say I was proud to like ask for help, but I've never sought it out, and I think now I'm more intentional about seeking out help. And the way I'm doing that is like I have various people who I would call coaches in my life, whether that be spiritual coaches, but most recently like business coaches, like people that I respect as my peers, and that I would see like as like, hey, like we're kind of on the same level in terms of, the things that we've accomplished professionally. But that doesn't mean that you can't teach me something. And I'm currently doing that right now in my profession, with my business profession, in terms of like, where do I want to go from here? And because there's a saying, hey, what got you here won't get you there. Okay. What got you to where you're at right now, that passion, that love, that's great. That got you here, but now you need more. You need more skill. You need a different mindset. You need maybe a different support system. You need better habits. You need more. Unless you're just going to stay the same. And the theme of this podcast, the theme of my life, and what I believe in my heart is that God gave us everything that he gave us to steward, to make the most, to cultivate fruit. So it's not about Guido, what are you going to produce now? You created Peak, Wadapalooza, Perfect Fuel, made it to the games. Like, what's next? And it's like, what's next is I want to be as fruitful as I can to bless as many people as I can. And that the legacy that I leave here is one that, whatever it was that I was able to do, it's not so much what I did, it's how I did it. That is the fruit itself, right? I read something this morning, to be more concerned with your motives than having the right motive, than making the right moves, right? That my motives would always stay pure. And, so with this coaching business that I'm going to be diving into, my motives are to really like transform the fitness culture. And we can dive more into that later, but the theme that I want to like really impress on in people's hearts is, if you want to take your life to the next step, is look at what it took to get you to where you're at. Have that childlike imagination, enthusiasm, and passion, but then also have the wisdom to know there's so much more and there's so many other people that you can learn from, and be humble and reach out to them. And that's what I'm doing now that I didn't do back then. So I'm really excited for, how God wants to continue to use me to bless other people. This podcast is one where I've had a lot of self-doubt. Like, what's the point? What am I going to even talk about? And I've come to a place where, you have been instrumental in helping me develop that. Like, yo, man, you have a story and people want to hear it, and it could bless people. And even if it just blesses one person, that's more than enough. Hopefully it's more than that, but however many it does, that's enough. So thank you for spending some time with me, man.
Oh, thank you for having me on. I feel honored to have listened to the story of the first person, and I can't wait for people to check it out. It was a great one. Thank you so much.
All right, brother. Thank you, Alessi. And by the way, Alessi has an amazing podcast himself that's called The Social League. So make sure you check him out there. He interviews some pretty amazing and interesting people. Like, it's like literally the diversity that you have in the people who you're interviewing is unlike any other. It's a pretty cool collection of folks. So thank you for being on here, bro.
Thank you so much.